This is a review of the Mpow 7-port USB 3.0 hub. It's a premium aluminum hub with 7 ports and an external power supply. Inside the box, you'll find this very nicely designed 7-port hub. I'll show it a little bit more detail later. A AC power supply that plugs in the wall with a 50-inch long cord to plug into the back of here. A USB 3.0 cable that plugs into the back, and the other side is a USB plug to plug into your computer. It's compatible with USB 1.1, 2.0, and 3.0. You also have a brief instruction manual. USB 3.0 cable is roughly 40 inches long. Here's the power supply. It's rated to operate at 100 to 240 volts AC and 50 to 60 hertz. Its output is 12 volts DC and 2.5 amps. Supply is UL listed. This hub assembly and all the accessories are basically identical to another hub sold by Anchor. They're probably made by the same company. The only difference is that this one has a different style of power supply at 2.5 amps and the Anchor one is 3 amps. You can see the back of the hub. This is a power off-on switch. Even with the power plugged in, you have to press this on or off. I like that because you can wire this up and then turn it on, and everything just starts up very quickly. This is the DC power inputs jack. This is the USB 3.0 input from the computer, and here are the 7 ports that are labeled. Across the top here, you'll see that each port is numbered. It also has an LED that lights up, which I'll show in my installation, and you'll see how it operates. The advantages of this hub over many others is the power supply. Each one of these ports can draw power. In my test that I show, every device I have plugged in draws a lot of current, and if this wasn't a powered hub, those devices would fail. Even though all these ports are powered by this, one thing you should remember, you only have one USB input in through this one cable that comes from your computer. By doing that, the bandwidth of the 5 gigabits per second data exchange is split between these 7 ports. So if all 7 of these are reading and writing at the same time, the data transmission will slow down. I like this hub. It's beautifully designed. It's a 7-port USB 3.0 hub that's powerful enough to power your devices, and it does have pretty fast read and write speeds. This is brushed aluminum, and the ends on this one is white plastic. This hub does feature voltage and current overload protection and has a built-in surge protector. That's important because you can have a lot of valuable equipment plugged into this. This is what my test setup looked like. I used a lot of devices that had to draw power from this hub. I did that on purpose to show the value of this power supply. This is an 80 gig standard hard disk drive from a laptop computer, powered by the USB, a 64 gig memory stick of medium speed, a 32 gig medium speed camera flash SD card, a 64 gig slower speed USB thumb drive, and this is a 128 gig ultra high speed thumb drive that has the speed of an SSD. Here you can see I have the hub in place, and I've plugged quite a bit of equipment into it. I try to select things that would use power. All these are drawing power out of here. That shows the benefit of having this power supply plugged in back here, because if it wasn't for the power supply, this wouldn't all come on. I'm going to run a speed test on this while they're all being powered and see what the result is. Before, one of the things I truly like is the fact that there's a power off-on button on the back of this hub. I could wire all this up and then turn the hub on, and when I did, all 5 of these devices connected like this to my computer. I want to point out that this power supply that's plugged in here, as I've mentioned, is 2.5 amps at 12 volts. That's a 30-watt power supply. It's not as powerful as some others I've seen, but it's adequate to run this hub for what I'm doing right now. One of the things I like about this hub a lot is that every device and every port that's in use has a blue LED on it that tells me it's in use. And this little light here tells me that the power is applied and the power button is pushed in. It's an excellent device for using with products that require power, but it's also compatible with printers and scanners and things that have their own external power supplies. This is sort of a worst case test just to show to you how I can operate all these devices with the one power supply. It's important to note that you have enough power. That's what makes this hub so useful, this power supply. By having it, it makes sure that all the devices have adequate power to operate. If that wasn't the case, some of these products may look like they're working in writing and reading, but you may be reading and writing corrupt data because it's underpowered. That's why this is so important to have this power supply. That's what makes this hub stand out among some of the others. In this test, I have this hub plugged in down here to a USB 3.0 port, so I'm getting the maximum speed. I just want to remind you that the speed here of the USB 3.0 port is divided down to all these 7 ports. It means that the data bandwidth of 5 gigabits per second is divided across 7 ports if they're all writing, so you're never going to quite achieve the maximum read-write speeds that you would if you had one device plugged in directly to this port. You have to remember that this is plugged into a USB 3.0 port. If you plug it into a USB 1.1 or a USB 2.0 port, it will work perfectly well, but the bandwidth and speed of communication will even be slower. The fault of this hub, that's just an actual result of the technology involved in making this hardware. I ran a benchmark test using a USB 3.0 port on a very fast computer. I plugged in 5 items that all draw power from the hub. Then I did a speed test on the fastest device. I got a write speed of 46.929 megabytes per second and a read speed of 150.806 megabytes per second. Here you can see my color graph from my benchmarking software. I tested the 128 gigabyte high-speed SSD quality thumb drive. I included the graph of the benchmark test in my video so you can see it. This product is nicely designed and it had good retest results. Matter of fact, they're excellent. It worked very well, it was fast, everything powered up and worked smoothly. I rated this device at 5 stars. I'd like you to know that this review was done by jjceo and that I received a sample for test and evaluation, and I promise to do a fair and honest review.